Welcome back to the drive. So I have a question this morning based on my own actions, but they were kind of highlighted by my daughter this morning. She had a project due, so she's been working on a play at school over the past several weeks, working up to it. But then they had the actual play this past week, Thursday through Saturday, and that took up a lot of her time. And then we had friend's birthday party on Sunday, took up the entire afternoon. So she was pretty busy. She had a project due, and it was due yesterday, and she ended up having computer malfunction, couldn't get it turned in, asked for an extension, got it turned in today, which is all good. She's a good kid. She really is. I am incredibly lucky as a father. And, she's the best part of my life. She makes me a better person. She just makes me incredibly happy. But part of being a parent is you got to correct your kids' issues and mistakes and help them prepare for the real world. So I had talked to her today about like, hey, that's not acceptable. How long did you know about this project? A while. Well, you could have had it turned in prior to all this stuff. You didn't have to wait for it to be done on the day it's supposed to be turned in. That's not good planning. And as I'm sitting there telling her this, in my head I'm going, yeah, that's pretty hypocritical for when you were that age, and later in life too. It is amazing how good we are as humans at ignoring the elephant in the room or ignoring the little problem until it becomes a big problem. I think it was Jordan Peterson mentioned a kid's storybook like the dragon under the rug or something like that. And it starts off tiny and like, oh, what is that? Like a little toy size thing until it eventually grows and like it's wearing the house essentially, but nobody wants to talk about it or face the issue. And some deep subject matter for a little kid's book because a lot of us do that as adults. And I'm just kind of wondering why, because it's a thing where it's an evolutionary bias where we are more attuned to the negative, and it's for survival purposes. If a snake bit one of our friends once and they died, it's a lot better for us to fear all snakes than to sit around and try to figure out which ones are venomous or not. Same thing with food, like, and we're less attuned to that, but if you've got to find out which ones are poison or not, like you're going to be really attuned to this type of food is poison. You're going to avoid berries that look like this or are similar to this. And if we have this bias towards negativity and really for it to stick for us, why is it so hard to deal with the things in society and modern life that obviously have negative outcome for us? And I think it's because things aren't immediate anymore. It's very rare that you get immediate consequences to your actions. You stick your hand in a fire or you grab a hot pan off the oven, you know right away it's, oh, shit, that's hot. You drop it, then you got to clean up the mess and you got to deal with the burn. That helps most of us not grab a hot pan too often. Still happens. I'm not thinking don't realize something is hot and grab it every now and again. But for the most part, we're not repeatedly burning ourselves on hot pans when we're cooking. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day who is running a small business, and he has some people that help him out. And there's some minor clerical stuff. It's not the end of the business if it doesn't get done, but it would greatly improve things if it was done. And he's been asking for it to be done for a while. And like it just takes a little bit of impetus to get things going, and nobody was really doing that. But once somebody kicked in, like this, it started to get done. And he's like, "Why is it so hard? Why is this? This is not a hard thing. Why is it so hard to get things going?" And my theory, because I've seen it a lot, especially with myself, was it doesn't hurt enough. Those people are not affected by it enough, and it's not causing enough of an issue for them to make it a priority for them. And I think this is what happens to us a lot. We start off with, oh, you know what? I overspent on my credit card this month. Well, I'm going to pay what I can, but I'm going to have to carry a little bit over. But that's okay. I'll get it next month. But then we don't get it next month, and we don't get it the following month. And eventually, this starts adding up and piling up, and interest rates accrue. And before you know it, you're 5, 10, 15 grand in debt, and you don't know how you got there. And you don't even want to look at your credit card bill or answer the phone anymore. I've been that person. I've seen loved ones go through that process. It's not cool. It's not fun. And unfortunately, at that point, it's not an immediate consequence. So you didn't learn the lesson, and you might repeat it again. And it might take some very painful years to recover from that issue. And if you don't learn the lesson from that, you're going to go through it again. And it's going to take some heavy duty consequences before you really learn the lesson. Because if we do something once and we survive, we think, well, I can handle that. And we're more likely to do it again. This has been coming up in discussions about jiu-jitsu lately with I'm at fault because I generally like to play a more playful game in jiu-jitsu, and I don't like to be extremely punishing to my partners. I want to have people like me and want to come back to train with me again. And I think there should always be some level of that. But there is a difference between injuring your partners and making them very uncomfortable. And if you don't ever make your partners uncomfortable, you are doing them wrong. You're doing a disservice. You need to make them uncomfortable so they realize these are positions you should not be in. Do not let yourself get here. Otherwise, you're going to get your face cranked. You're going to get your spine twisted, and it's not going to feel good and really should not feel good. But if you don't make things not feel good, they're not going to learn the lesson. And I'm lucky. A lot of people were very good at helping me learn that lesson as a white belt. And I have to start doing that for my students and my training partners who are newer at this. And as a parent, I've been lax about being the heavy when it comes to my daughter. My wife has been, just because her hours match up more with my daughter, she sees them more. She's more attuned to these types of things. She has more knowledge, more experience, and more presence of mind about the impact of actions in school and society than I do, because I didn't grow up with school and society. I was homeschooled and had a very cloistered upbringing. So it's not as present to me in my mind. And I'm a guy. I'm white. I'm middle class. I live in America. Like, there's a lot less consequences to my actions than there are to other people. I mean, even though we're white and middle class, my wife and daughter are women, and they do get different treatment. I've seen it with the way that when my wife calls for service for various different things, she's treated differently than I am if I'm the person on the phone by whatever service. So it's very crazy to me. Like, I go through life thinking everybody's treated the same way I am, and it's definitely not true. And I have friends who are of different races, religions, sexual preferences, and I can see where they interact with society differently because they are expecting a different reaction from society just based on whatever their certain proclivity is or their certain genetic makeup. It's really weird to me. And it's sad that I'm in my mid 40s and only have started to really realize this in the last decade or so. But I think that's the thing, where we do have this strong negativity bias where we recognize it, but in society we've really kind of nerfed ourselves enough that we're now not learning our lessons. And this is why, even though I think academics are really important and I want my daughter to do well academically to the point of she doesn't get to do extracurriculars if she's not doing well in school, a lot of the crap you do in school you're never going to use in life. I don't think it's specifically the subject knowledge that's the issue. there's some stuff you will and you won't use. Some stuff you'll never use. Some stuff you didn't think you'll use will pop up later and you'll be glad you learned it, or at least have some kind of experience for it. But a vast majority of getting through the school experience is just learning how to be responsible and complete things on times, uh, do a thorough job, do well, learn how to fix your mistakes. Like, these are valuable life schools. Learning the social interactions and how to stand up for yourself but not be a dick, all valuable things. But I think that extracurriculars are valuable as well because it teaches you about the arts and human expression. Those are immensely valuable. But if you go to the athletic side of things, it's a lot less forgiving than other portions of our society, depending on what kind of program you're in. There is a great deal, and it came about. I think a lot of it was due to my generation being kind of leaned upon pretty heavy by parents who were either boomers or raised by boomers in early Gen X folks. Because I'm a zillennial. I'm at the very tail end of Gen X, beginning millennial, and I saw both the hard upbringing side and the beginning of participation trophies. And I don't think participation trophies do anybody any good, because then you're just telling kids it doesn't really matter what you do. Everybody's going to get praised even if they didn't earn it. And that's meaningless. And kids know that's meaningless. I think that's why video games are so popular, is you have to work hard to complete them, at least the good ones. And they're frustrating. And that's good. And that's why extracurricular activities like athletics, like anything where you have to work hard to Boy Scouts, earn a merit badge, anything of that nature is worthwhile, because you're going to fail and it's going to hurt and you're going to learn that lesson and then you'll get better from it. And I think the hard part for me, the thing I'm trying to take away from it, if I have a good idea of what's going on here with why we do it, why we continue to do it, is how to identify those points in my life where I've gotten comfortable avoiding the issue, and how do I take them on? And how do you do that when there is a risk of some catastrophic outcomes? So I have a crappy knee from an old motorcycle injury that I never got properly cared for. And I'm pretty sure I have torn meniscus. Pretty sure it was a bucket handle tear that has since worn through. There's just a big chunk floating around in there. And it's given me different levels of pain or issues over the years, but it's progressively become more of an issue. And I can definitely see it in my jiu-jitsu practice and in my physical fitness practice of being limited in some movements, being limited in the depth I can get to in my squat, how close I can get my butt to my heels, the different types of single leg movements I can do, some level of instability there. If I wanted to play basketball or something like that right now, I guarantee I wouldn't be able to. I can't do the turning, cutting motions. And in jiu-jitsu, a great deal of what I should be doing at the level I'm at now requires full use of your limb. You should be able to get your butt all the way to your heels. You should be able to let that foot be tied up in something so that you can use it to lift, or you can pull through to free it from something. And I'm extremely hesitant to do that. If somebody pushes my heel to my butt, it's pretty painful, and I definitely will give up advantages and positions to it. And I'm not able to properly leverage my partner when I need to do a sweep or something of that nature, just because stability is not there. It's painful to do, and I'm very lacking in the motion of doing some passes. There's something called a knee cut pass, where you're just baseball sliding through, essentially, from having one leg stuck between your partners. And I'm extremely hesitant to do that, because that foot getting caught up and me pushing my whole body weight through on something is a really good chance for something to go, and for it to be like, okay, well, you've dealt with it this long, now it's surgery. But at what point do I have to decide proactively, like, you know what, this is a hindrance. You've ignored it. You've ignored it. You've got to a level now where this is not ignorable. You are truly damaging your future growth if you continue to try to deal with something and half-ass stuff. And I think I'm getting close to that level. And my friend Joe, who does the BJJ Meditations podcast, go listen to it. Excellent content. Just he holds it extremely high quality at all times. And he had one on conviction yesterday. And really, you can conceptualize stuff, you can be involved with it mentally, but then when you go to try to do it, you have not committed to it. You have not given it the proper amount of physical experience for it to work, and it's not going to work. You didn't have the conviction that, yes, I have done everything I need to do and I can commit to this. And I think some of that is there for me. Like, you have to have the conviction to follow something through. And I think the safety blanket thought that is valid of, hey, I gotta be able to go to work and take care of my family and pay for things, and I'm not doing that if I get my knee blown out. Well, this is true, but you've also committed to using jiu-jitsu as something to better yourself and your family as well. What's the point of spending so much time doing it if you're not going to do it as hard as you can to the utmost? And at what point are you just using that as a crutch? Because my knee does interfere in other points of life as well. And it's progressively gotten to a greater degree of interference. So that's something that I have ignored and allowed to grow and grow and grow rather than getting it handled at an earlier point. And I have plenty of excuses, at one point not having insurance, forever not having time, just not wanting to take that time out of life, even before I started jiu-jitsu. So many excuses. But at some point you have to get past them. Just like financially, at some point you have to say, this is unsupportable. There's no way I could ever pay this money off. I have to do something. I have to radically change my finances. And whether that's living in austerity, whether that's getting extra jobs, whether that's selling a bunch of stuff, whether that's finding a cheaper place to live, none of those things are fun. But at some point, if you let the problem grow, you have to do them. I've had a lot of experience with weight too. God, food issues are so damn insidious because you have to eat to survive. And we are so driven to eat as much as we can just because biologically that was so unavailable. The excess of calories was so unavailable to us for such a long period of human history. We're just geared towards it. And if you have a high food drive and you have ready access to a bunch of wonderful tasting food, man, and if you have not cultivated discipline, that's a really bad recipe. That was me, childhood through the entirety of my 20s, well into my 30s. And it's little incremental things. You can have periods where you can knock it off. Boot camp did that for me, and it was painful, and it worked really well. And then incrementally, it grew up again until when I got out of the military, I just ballooned. Like I crept up throughout the last year or two of my military experience, and then as soon as I got out, just boom, right back to where I was before I ever started becoming active to get into the military, right back up to 250. And then minor success, 10, 15 pounds here and there until I got divorced. And then that was a big culture shock for me. And I really started to get fit and watch what I ate and dropped a ton of weight, got back down close to boot camp weight, and then it crept up again. I have fought this battle and not learned my lesson so many times until after my daughter was born. And that was what really kind of started me changing my life. And I finally, in the last 5 years, made the decision of, you have to make a choice. This is not getting easier. This is getting harder every time you do this. You have to make the choice now to be on the straight and narrow to a much greater degree and choose to be that person who gets more wiry as they get older, or You're just going to have to give up and be that disgusting person with all these medical issues who's being a drain on society because you chose to be obese. And that sounds harsh, but that's true. Like in my instance, that's true because I absolutely can be young and or slim and fit, or I could be enormous, and it's completely a choice on my part. I don't have genetic issues causing hyperthyroidism or any other kind of hormonal imbalance that's holding me back. So yeah, sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet. But how do you keep on guard for that? I guess that's my question: is how do we try to find those things while they're still small and keep on guard and not allow them to become big? And I think it's a habit you develop. The more success you have, the faster you can realize these things, and the more you can get in the habit of, oh, there's a thing, I got to address it now. Yeah, it's inconvenient, but it's so much less painful to get it done now than when it's too late and I have to recover. All those old adages about an ounce of prevention being worth a pound of recovery. I don't know what the rest of that adage is, but they're true. So where is that popping up in your life? If you see these and you find it interesting, hop on, let me know. I'd love to start a conversation, love to get some dialogue because I'm really interested in other people's points of view and how they deal with things. I try to learn as much as I can. All right. So I hope that left you with some food for thought, and hopefully you're better at this than I am, and you cannot relate. All right. Thank you for listening. Take care. Hope to talk to you again soon.